I call David Seymour.
Mr Speaker, I rise on behalf of the ACT Party in opposition to this bill. And at first blush, you might have thought it'd be at least a topic worth supporting, because there are some serious issues. And I have to disagree with Jamie Lee Ross that the sustainability of New Zealand super, while it may be a politically popular thing to trumpet, is not a fiscal reality, and you only have to ask the Treasury to give you a copy of their long-term fiscal outlook to understand that. And I can also concur with what Grant Robertson said, that anybody who has a regular presence in their electorate office, and that's not everybody, as we know, will understand that Section 70 is a real issue for a great many people. And there are people who find that they have, perhaps, as Mr Robertson said, a pension entitlement to NZ Super. They may have a spouse whose entitlement from an overseas pension scheme is greater than that pension entitlement, and they find that the excess is actually deducted off their NZ Super entitlement. And I can understand why people find that very, very annoying, and I've dealt with some of them, and often it's actually very saddening. But the reality is that let's have a few observations, let's have a few realities about this bill. This bill is unworkable. Where was Dennis O'Rourke in 1977? Who knows? And you have to multiply that. You have to ask everybody where they were during that period, and was it more than 2 months that they were away? And the fact is that it is unworkable and impossible. But where it becomes very easy to tell is if you're like Julianne Genter. We know that she wasn't in New Zealand in 1977 because we know that she grew up in another country, and that might be why the Attorney-General has given a report showing that this violates the Human Rights Act because it treats different groups of people differently. New Zealanders, this pro-rata bill will never be enforceable. For resident immigrants, it will be almost impossible for them to get a fair hearing. They will be treated differently. And the problem with New Zealand First in general is you might say, oh, but their intentions with this bill were at least sound in this particular case. But they do it so often that you come back to what I think it was Stephen Covey once said, that I can't hear what you're saying because what you are screams so loudly. And once again in this bill we see the New Zealand First trend of being, at the very least, I think as one member said, borderline racist. But then we come to the Section 70 issues, those that all of us who have sat in our electorate office would like to help. There's Sarah Dowie. We know she was born in Invercargill, so it won't affect her because you'll never be able to prove where she was in 1977. But nevertheless, we'd like to help people affected by Section 70, but just take the example that Mr Robertson brought up earlier. The woman who has taught in New Zealand for 30 or 40 years, she has a full entitlement to NZ Super, and yet she finds herself, by the sounds of it, with a husband who has a fairly generous pension from overseas, at least twice as much as the NZ Super entitlement, and she finds that she doesn't get any NZ Super, so they miss out. The reality is, Mr Speaker, that under this bill of pro-rata entitlement, he would miss out anyway. They would still be out by one pension because he, by the sounds of it, has spent so much time overseas accumulating a pension. And you will find that even though it's a lovely idea to at least go forward to Select Committee and debate Section 70, the reason it is so fraught is because there are so many pension schemes that it is simply very, very hard to reconcile the so many schemes that there are around the world. So with that in mind, Mr Speaker, this is a bill that is insincere in its commitment. It will not have the effects that we hope, and for that reason it would not be a good use of the Select Committee or the House's time to continue debating this bill through any further stages. Thank you, Mr Speaker.